You are listening to the Hello Sport Podcast.
Got iPads as well, new thing, just to try and class it up a little bit with the iPads.
We've also got styluses. So.
Yeah, these are just
okay, wow.
If you don't get wowed if
you see the stylus pen, it's just I'm just
like if you see it's just sort of like twiddling a stylus.
filtering through notes here.
It's like the ABC or Insider.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, listen, it's professional. We run a professional outfit.
Here.
Nothing says professionalism more than a stylus. IMO.
Yeah, they literally just sat here for a missile just before. It was just like I didn't even look.
I didn't look at it once.
I didn't look at it once. That was definitely like an impulse purchase. Like, you know what it'd just really punch up the production, I think, is if we were not holding pieces of paper we're doing it.
We get a lot of shit off the boys for doing that, but it's not their call.
No, it's not. Listen, it was necessary. We don't do we don't really do intros. We might record one afterwards, so we just sort of roll. But I think what we were just interested to know off the start is how you find your way to the C-suite at the Rabbitohs. We love the C-suite, just the term C-suite, I think, more than anything else.
I think the only thing, that we, not to impugn C-suites everywhere, but
we're not C-suite guys.
No, but sort of. We're more head honchos, I think, is how we like to refer to ourselves. Do you prefer C-suite or would you like to be
would you like to be head honcho?
Yeah. No, I think head honcho is above the C-suite.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe you're right.
For sure.
Yeah, no, maybe
You're right. But how'd you find your way to CEO of the Rabbitohs? What's been your sort of career path?
So I was a qualified lawyer, did 10 years in private practice, realised that living your life in 6-minute increments is probably not much fun, and was lucky enough to get a job as an in-house lawyer at Super League in the UK. I'd moved over there to play a bit of footy and in grassroots footy over there and work as a lawyer. Met my wife over there, so a 2-year working holiday became 11 years in the end, but moved from law, worked at Super League, operational, commercial roles, was the general manager of Super League, and then we hosted the Rabbitohs in the World Club Challenge back in 2015. Got to know Russell and Nick and Richo, and then when the job became available in 2016, applied and was given it. So it was probably one of the few jobs I would have moved back from the UK for. I was loving my time over there, but the Rabbitohs is a very special club.
So we've got some, on our iPads here. We had a question that sort of, later on in the piece, but I guess that potentially gives some indication as to why you're so involved in the potential purchase of the Super League. Where is that? Like, are you helming that push?
No, I wouldn't be the helm or the head honcho of it, but Richo and I, because Richo spent a long time in the UK, I spent a long time in the UK, we know the game over there pretty well. So Andrew and Peter have been kind enough to get our opinions on whether we think it's a good idea and what the approach should be. We're both really supportive. I think a lot of the progressive clubs over there are really supportive as well. I think it's a huge opportunity to put the NRL and Super League together. It's a compelling TV product over there and here, and if we can be more aligned, I think, not only in terms of calendar, but the clubs, the international game, I think it's a real opportunity to give the sport some more energy and enthusiasm over there, and that's what it needs. It's got some big competitors, the Premier League, cricket, rugby union over there, so any help that we can give to the Super League competition can only be good.
What's it dying out for? What's it in need of most? I think
it probably needs a little bit of money. I think the TV deal isn't as good as lucrative as it used to be. And I think it just needs probably some, as I said, energy and enthusiasm, and probably a bit of Peter's dynamism and wanting to get things done and just getting stuff done, and sort of overriding some of the club interests that have controlled the game over there for a long period of time. I think if it can get that enthusiasm, there's a real market for it. You only have to look at how quickly the Kangaroos ticket sold.
Yeah.
When you're selling out Everton and doing really well at Wembley, that shows you that there's a real latent fan base for rugby league in the UK. And if the Super League competition is a bit more, has a bit more energy about it and is a bit better profiled, the fans will come.
How realistic is it, that it will go ahead, do you think?
Oh, I think it's very realistic. I know the conversations we had with the Super League clubs when we were in Vegas, they were really open to the idea, and I suspect later on in the year, to be fair to Peter and Andrew, they've had a fair bit on with PNG and Perth. Once they get the time and opportunity to give it some more consideration, I think it's a big chance of happening, and I think it'll be great for the game.
Obviously, the NRL clubs are associated with for example, like New South Wales Cup teams. Would there be a world where you could be have a relationship with Super League clubs and sort of there'd be open up a greater flow of players?
I think absolutely. I think there's a few of us that would really love to have partnerships with UK-based Super League clubs or Catalan if Peter and Andrew were running the game. I think
Ricky Stewart would hate that. He'd be
Yeah,
like,
but
I've got the
that's
Super
his-
League
that's
on
his
lock,
thing.
dude.
Yeah.
Don't you come over and take all our juniors.
What have I got left?
Yeah.
Ricky'd probably have to try and find a new market.
Well,
right?
that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, he would.
But I just think everyone wants the game to succeed over there. A lot of our CEOs, a lot of the coaches have had experiences over there. We want it to work. We want it to be better. And whatever that looks like, no one probably knows for sure. But we do know if Peter and Andrew take hold of it, it's something worth considering.
And it's funny because it's like, obviously the time difference is nothing. You can't get around that. But certainly from an Australian perspective, like just the awareness of the games and like the teams and the players. And once you're able to like get over that level of lack of understanding, I just feel like you're opening yourself up to, I guess, to Australian audiences just being able to become way more engaged with the game over there. Because as it currently stands, it's just sort of out of sight, out of mind.
It is a bit. And like, I don't know whether you guys in Vegas or not, but
First year.
First year. Well, last year this season with the two clubs in Wigan and Warrington, the noise and the energy those fans had and the excitement they created, and next year will probably be bigger with OKR and Leeds. So you only have to sort of be exposed to that and see how much they love the sport to know that there's a real opportunity there. The other thing at Super League, I went to France and tried to sell rugby league TV rights, and America to try and sell rugby league rights, and the feedback from all of them was, if you put International Rugby League, the NRL and Super League in one package, you've got something that we can buy. But at the moment, it's just one competition, another competition, and some international games that no one really knows when and where they're going to take place every year. So put them all together, and I think the US market and the French market becomes really attractive.
What did you love most about the Super League?
The people.
People, yeah.
Because it is a smaller sport, largely based in the north, had a sort of a battler and underdog status, and a great history, and the reasons why it was created there were compelling, and I just love the people and how passionate they were about it, because it would be a lot easier to be a football fan or follow rugby union. There's not a lot of social cachet in being a rugby league fan over there, but they are so passionate about it. They live and breathe the game. You go into a pub anywhere in the north of England, and the minute they know you're an Aussie and you're interested in rugby league, you have a conversation about their favourite players, your favourite players, who's the best they saw, who's the best you've seen. Great test matches like those 90 and 94 Kangaroo Tours that were so competitive. So I just love their passion for the rugby league.
Is the NRL big up there in the north? Or
every
not so
rugby
much?
league fan in the north of England has their Super League team and probably a rugby league team. Obviously, Souths are big because of the Burgess boys' influence over there. There's a lot of West Tigers fans because of when Gareth Ellis came here and was so good.
Yep.
Even guys who go for Manly from going back to Kevin Ward. So they'd always have their own NRL team, and they'd always have their own Super League team. Funny enough, the priest who married my wife and I was a huge rugby league fan, and he said he used to watch the videos when they come out. They come out about a week and a half later. He'd go down to the local video store and get the Winfield Cup.
Oh, really?
Videos, yeah.
Oh,
so he knew,
simpler times.
and particularly simpler times, but particularly with Scully and Andy Courier, Ellery, Martin, when they all came over here, that created a real interest in the NRL and New South Wales Rugby League over there.
Manly hasn't had a POM for a while. We had Luke Burgess
for a hot second.
and he was late. That was late career Luke Burgess. We need a fresh POM.
The POM had come off him.
We're due a fresh
The POM
POM.
had come off him a bit.
He almost had an Australian accent at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
He'd been really indoctrinated into the ways of the
Yeah, no,
Australian.
we need someone. We need an unbridled POM.
I need a freshie.
A fresh POM.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, we'll look into it. How, transferable is the skills from being a lawyer into being a sports administrator?
Surprisingly transferable, I think. Obviously, you deal with lots of different issues on any given day in rugby league, and not all of them are legal, but the training you get as a lawyer, rational logic, sort of trying to solve problems all the time. Rugby league and sports administration, you tend to see a fair few problems of any different nature. And so it's a good background, a good grounding. You try and keep your head about you and try and find the right solution to the right issue.
You must, wrangling leagueies must just be something that
Well, you got to be a lawyer.
You got to be a lawyer, and you probably got to have a pillow to scream into every once in a while, or a room just to go and exhale heavily. How have you found coming over to one of the biggest clubs in the NRL? How long have you been at the Rabbitohs? When did you say
9 years.
2016 was it?
Yeah, 2016. Yeah.
So it's one of the glamour clubs, biggest name one of the biggest names in the game. So do you feel pressure in there? Is there a lot more scrutiny?
Oh, there's a lot more scrutiny. I mean, again, the difference between it Super League, we would do anything we could to get the national newspaper or on national radio.
Now you're trying to stay out of it.
Now you're trying to kind of minimise your exposure. So, when in 2015, the final round of the season, the minor premiership was up for grabs. We hired a helicopter because it could have gone to 3 different venues to make sure that we could deliver the trophy. Obviously, the minor premiership's a huge trophy in British sport generally. And that was the sort of stuff we would do just to create a story or get ourselves on BBC Radio or BBC TV or in the national newspapers. Here it's very different. You've generally got the media camped outside your office if the mascot does something wrong or if there's 3 or 4 injuries or anything like that.
Free Reggie.
Yeah, it's extremely different. So that is not difficult to get used to, but you have to remind yourself that it's actually probably a good thing because the reason the media there are people are passionate about it, and in our case there are so many people who are passionate about Rabbitohs.
Just a welfare check on Reggie. Is he doing all right?
He's good. Yeah, no, he's
one of the great rabbits.
He's one of the great rabbits.
Yeah.
It turns 81 very soon. He might have even turned 81.
One of the oldest rabbits.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that long than I rabbit.
Well, listen, Reggie.
Yeah.
So
is he doing all right?
He's doing okay.
He's doing well, yeah. So
back.
he's still keen to keep doing what he does, and he's around the club most days of the week. He lives up the road, comes down and talks to all the staff. Yesterday he was at our community clinic, so you couldn't meet a more passionate person than Charlie about the Rabbitohs and what they've done for his life.
Listen, and for what it's worth, we were always in camp, Reggie. That kid was asking for it, but that's just
That would have been another pillow situation, I'm sure.
Fuck!
Leave Reggie alone.
Leave Reggie alone.
Can I ask, what's it like? It must have been really humbling to be wined and dined by Gladiator himself, Russell Crowe. Can you talk us through those early interactions and the niceties he might have whispered in your ear?
Yeah, it wasn't too many niceties, to be fair. It was Russell's just got a real vision and a passion for the club, and like many people who've joined, it's infectious when he starts talking about how much he loves the club, where and how big he thinks the club can be, and his commitment to winning games and premierships. So it was a bit surreal. I was driving from Leeds to Manchester, and it would have been February or March, so it was pretty miserable weather, very dark, and then get a call from Russell to say, would you like to come back and take the job? Have a lot of time for Nick, got to know Nick Pappas, our chairman as well, who's been at the club really since the fight back. So he came over as well as part of that trip and got to know Nick. So humbling and very exciting as well at the same time. Not the easiest conversation with my wife. We'd just finished a year-long renovation of a house in Leeds, so timing probably couldn't have been any worse. So she wasn't as excited, but at the same time, it was too good an opportunity to resist. And with Russell, Nick, and got to know Richo really well, and Richo was coming back as GM of footy at the time, so the opportunity to work with Richo and learn from his wisdom in the game was really important too.
How involved is he day-to-day, Russell?
Probably depends on how much he's working, really. If he's got a lot of acting on, obviously that's his job, so he's focused on that, but he's engaged. He's on the phone to Wayne or I most days or most weeks, just seeing how the team's going and how the business is operating and whether we're going to win this week or not, like every huge fan. But no, he's super engaged, and so is Mike, Cannon Brooks as well. Mike's really engaged too.
Love that.
Do you ever when shit, will you hear from Russell when, in the Reggie situation, you get a text where he's like, what the fuck is going on? Either of those ones where you're like, oh no.
I usually let them know if there's something like that coming up.
Yeah.
So, because they're
fair.
public figures themselves, right? So the last thing they want to do is be
door-stopped
surprised by
about the
something.
rabbit.
So, try and keep them in the loop and make sure they don't get any surprises.
Yeah, for sure. What about how much? There's obviously on-field rivalry with the clubs. From the C-suite level, the head honchos and in and around the top dogs, you guys all pretty cool with each other? Are there some that are maybe more rivalry generally? Do you know what I mean?
I think we try and keep the rivalry to on-field. Obviously, we're hugely competitive and you want your team to win, but to your point about a pillow to scream into, sometimes you don't need a pillow, but a few CEOs you can talk to and
bottle of red,
compare
Mr.
notes.
Wongs.
Exactly, and I think that's one of the good things the last few years. The CEOs have probably never been closer as a group and speak more regularly and share ideas and share issues and probably a nice group counselling network when you need it. There's a lot of us have
funny
been
skit video in that.
Yeah, there
NRL
is.
CEOs coming up, catching up for a meeting.
Just
Well,
pan
You think
and
your
buggers.
fucking club's stressful, mate?
well, you kind of know that it's not 3 times during the year, you're going to be in the frame and you're going to be in the middle of an issue that's beyond your control, and having some support from CEOs or people you can pick the phone up. Always talk about during COVID, I reckon I spoke to Dave when he was at the Storm and now at the Broncos more than I spoke to my wife, particularly that early part of how we're going to keep these businesses operating. And that was great to have someone you could call who was in the same situation as you and talk about how scared you were about the future or where the upsides were. And a lot of that's sort of carried through. The good thing is there's a lot of us now been around the table for a long time. Like Donnie's been at Canberra for a long time, and it's always good to pick their brains. Richo's been in the game forever. So, and they're generally good people as well. So happy to pass on what they know.
Are you in a group chat together?
There's a few group chats,
C-suite WhatsApp
C-suite group chats, yeah.
I'd love to get added to that. Just for a moment, just to see what's going on. Yeah. Ask some questions. How's it go then in the situation that you're in now with like Allianz, Roosters, and Rabbitohs? Sort of, you guys want to the stance is that you guys would like to take them to that. You'd like that to become your home ground. Yeah. How's it go then? Are you in the way you engage with your C-suite counterpart over there?
Yeah, I'd say that's less collegiate and less supportive. There's no group chats there. To be fair to Nick, he's been pretty clear on why he doesn't want us there. And we first of all respect that that's their home ground. It's where their training centre is. We're not trying to boot them out in any way, shape or form. We respect it. But for us, we were promised a refurb of a core stadium. The government was going to spend $800 million on it. For good reasons, the government's decided not to spend that. And our view is, well, given that you've spent $1 billion on one that's very close to our heartland, if not in our heartland, it just makes sense for us to move there and try and deliver some return for the taxpayers.
Absolutely.
And who has final sign-off on that? Is that the SCG Trust?
It's Venues New South Wales at the moment and the New South Wales government, yeah. So, and Venues run pretty much all the stadium network in New South Wales, and it's probably a government and Venues New South Wales decision.
Would it be seen though as you leaving a core like we've sort of given up on it?
I don't know.
As in not you personally, but like Venues New South Wales, the New South Wales government, would that be seen as like if they lost you and then maybe say the Bulldogs left, what's left?
Yeah, I think speaking of the Dogs, they want to stay there. They think it's their home. It probably makes more sense geographically to them, and Belmore probably doesn't do the trick. So I think they'd like to stay there. But I don't know whether it's that or whether someone somewhere has to make a decision about what a core stadium's actually for. You go there for a Taylor Swift concert or a Luke Combs concert and everyone loves it, right? But for a week in, week out club game, it's just not as suitable.
Did I read somewhere that, and this could be incorrect, so please correct me if I am, that because you moved there, 16 years ago? Longer?
20 years ago.
20 years ago?
20 years ago.
A lot of your fan base now lives out in that part of Sydney. Is that inaccurate?
Oh, I think our fan base is disparate everywhere. So you look across all of Sydney, southwest Sydney, western Sydney, Central Coast, Newcastle. Our fan base is spread pretty far and wide. But the main part of our fan base still is in between Moore Park, Woolloomooloo, out to Matraville, Botany, Little Bay.
Could do a loser leaves town match at Allianz.
That'd be huge.
You just go and beat him and go, fuck off, you're out at a core.
Yeah, you play for all the rubies. Like, lose or leave.
That would be great. It does make sense to have you both there, though. I mean, we're obviously anti a core from just a fan. We don't live out there, basically. It's self-interest.
It's not so much that. It's more the
There's nothing
it's
happening
the experience out there. It's a bit barren. Yep. That's all.
And we were happy to stay, and the $800 million plan would have fixed a lot of those issues. Yeah. And for good reasons, during the pandemic, the government said, look, this is a cost we can't afford, which we respect, but you go to CommBank as is now and Allianz, and the fan experience is tremendous, and there's a lot of things to do and see around that area. Homebush, for whatever reason, just doesn't have that same precinct.
A lot of cement.
Lot of cement.
Not
as many pubs, bars, clubs, restaurants, all the stuff that people want to do when they go for a night or a day at the footy now.
Yeah.
Some of the articles I've read have made it sound like the Roosters go, it's not happening. Have they got any say whatsoever?
They're certainly saying it's not happening. I don't know how much say they've got. Again, we respect it's their home ground. I look at places in Europe, you can't find a more passionate rivalry in world sport than Inter Milan and AC Milan. They share the San Siro. There's no issue with it. It makes sense. It actually drives the stadium because you want more big games in the stadium. And I think if we were playing home and away at the Roosters, it'd be tremendous to be sell out straight away.
Yeah.
Drive both our membership programs, probably be the hottest ticket in town.
Seriously.
Which is, again, going back to AFL, that's how they've driven it, right? All those teams sharing the MCG. You go there on Anzac Day, it's a huge event. You go there on Dreamtime at the G last week. Mm-hmm. They've created big events in big stadiums by putting local rivals in them and playing them regularly.
Crows and Port Adelaide share the Adelaide Oval.
They do, yep. So it can be done, and again, they've got a pretty passionate rivalry.
Yeah, it's
West
got
Coast,
reeks of just not wanting to share your toys. I got 3 young daughters, and none of them want to share. But it's like, it works for everyone.
But I can see where if you're running the Roosters, you're like, no. You stay out of that shit one.
Yes,
we've got the good one.
Respectfully.
Well, my core stadium, it's not what it was. It's like almost 30 years old. So
yeah, it is. And in stadia terms, that's like you're an ancient.
Exactly right.
So when will the decision be made?
It's up to the government.
Oh, so it's not even like a timeline?
No, not a time zone. We keep talking to them and trying to work with them because we want it to be good for everyone. So hopefully they can get their heads around it sooner rather than later. We'd love to be in there for 2026.
Ooh.
We want to be there sooner rather than later.
Round 1, you just book that in, don't you?
Straight away.
And that's, we'd love to be there because we know what a great stadium it is, and the government, rightly, should be probably proud of what they've built. And
it's terrific.
Yeah.
It's terrific. I want the government to know that. You've done a great job.
You've done a great job. But give South
I think it's convenient for me if South's playing there.
Well, exactly. Well, listen, and we've got no skin in the game either, New South Wales, venues New South Wales. So if you want some impartial third parties here.
But I would go to Rabbitohs Roosters playing at Allianz.
Which is the one, is it, or maybe I'm just thinking of, I don't know if it was an Anzac Day clash because that's obviously Roosters Dragons, but that one where it was like the chaos, 50 yellow cards. Was that just an end of season game?
It was a semi-final.
Semi-final.
Sin bin Sunday.
Sunday.
Yep.
Ashley Klein having a day out, was it? He loves a card, Ashley.
Yeah. To be fair, I think all 7 players deserved a sin bin, so it's hard to argue with it. But it was
Sin bin Sunday.
But that's what you want to build rivalry off.
For sure.
And those sorts of afternoons. And the week before when the stadium open was a tremendous night, even though we didn't get the win. We think we can do that on a regular basis there, which has to be good.
Punters and Dribblers, we are brought to you by the greatest beer in all the land, and that is 4 Pints Japanese Lager, and we've got some exciting news. If you head to 4pintsbeer.com.au, they have just brought out a fresh merch range for you all to enjoy.
They've punted with a like-minded supplier, punters and dribblers, that, like them, likes to do good stuff through ethical practices and recycled materials. So again, 4pintsbeer.com.au. Get yourself a hoodie, get yourself a t-shirt, get yourself a hat, okay? And dress to impress, baby. Tobler, you need a couple of these, I think, old boy.
I'd definitely wear them.
4 Pints Beer. What's up, punters and dribblers? We are brought to you by Neds, the premium betting platform in this great nation of ours, Australia. Myself and Edward, big fans of their work. They get around us. They get around About Even, which is subsequently the #1 betting show in the country. But get on the Neds app and have a punt if you're into it. What do you
That's
reckon,
right,
Ed?
Tom. Listen, Ned's it's like goose feathers, okay, in your duvet or in your pillow. Goose feathers, that's Ned's. Everything else is just rank polyester balls. You know what I'm saying? Get with the goose feathers, baby. Shout out to Ned's.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website. You enjoying having Humphreys' office, mate? Stealing Humphreys from the Seagulls? You happy with that one?
Yep, very happy with that one.
Yeah.
We chased him a few years ago and he stayed at Manly. Got a lot of time for the family and Jamie's been tremendous.
He's a good style of a bloke, Jamie Humphreys.
Good style, but really intelligent young man, and he's been a real asset for us this year.
Yeah, he's been great. He's been obviously devastated to see. We were like furious as a fan base when we saw him leave, but happy to see how well he's been going for you guys. And just generally, Souths, like Eddie and I think we hate every team that's not Manly quite publicly, but then we also like. It's hard to hate certain teams. And just seeing what you guys have done this year has been one where you're sort of like, it's hard to not get around the style that you guys have sort of gone about your work.
Yeah, we've had a lot of injuries and that's been tough to get through, but the character of the players has been tremendous. And the young guys, Jamie's one of them, Lachlan Hubner, some of these guys have come into the team unheralded and done a tremendous job. And you know their best years ahead of them too, which is exciting for us too.
Seriously. How's Wayne going? So you would have been there when Wayne was there, then he left and then he came back. Was it a mistake letting Wayne go initially?
Yeah, it's sort of, you look back and think it was, although I remember when Wayne came down, I think he was looking at a few more years coaching, and then it had been a pretty bruising experience at the end there at Brisbane, and then came to us and I think rediscovered a lot of his love and passion for coaching, and he'd already committed to go back to Brisbane, and we committed to Jason taking over. So, but it was great to get a second chance to work with him.
Yeah.
And he's just great. He's been around the game a long time. You talk about large language models. He's probably sort of human AI himself, because he's just seen everything so often, and he knows what players like and what they don't like. So he's got that wisdom, but his enthusiasm for coaching is as strong now as I've ever seen it. He just loves being around a young team of athletes and trying to make them better players and better people.
What would be the biggest misconception about him?
I think the biggest misconception about Wayne is that what the media sees in his press conference is what he's like away, without wanting to probably do him any harm. He's actually quite a funny person, very warm, very generous, loves conversation, will talk about anything, really curious, which is probably the opposite of what you see on a
It's complete
Captain's
opposite.
Run media conference.
You see it like every once in a while. Like, sometimes it's after a loss. You know what I mean? It's like you don't even know when you're going to get it. It could be a big win and he just like doesn't want to talk anything up. So he's super. Then there's like a loss and he'll just be like super affable, and you're like, it seems like this is the real guy coming through.
We don't last as long as he has in the game without having some very special characteristics. And no, he's great to work with, and also great to learn off. Again, he's seen so many variations of the game on the field. He's seen so many things that have happened off it. So any problem you've got, he's someone you can go to and say, have you seen this before, or what do you think we should do? And he's always got a map to get out of it.
As a leader of a lot of staff and employees, and it's important for you to bring the vibe, I'm sure. It's just like set the tone, bring the energy. How do you go about that where before the seasons ever start, you lose Cameron Murray and you lose Latrell Mitchell? Like, how do you go into work on a Monday and get everyone up and about?
Official day of mourning.
Or do you just everyone go home?
No, I've got all the Winston Churchill quotes you can think of lying around the office, so they help.
Whip out a ciggy.
That's it, yeah. It was no cigar and champagne or whiskey. But and Wayne, funny enough, on that one, Wayne was superb. He just said, no, this happened before, and he recounted the year and who the players were that got injured and said, don't worry about it, we'll be okay. And that obviously helps because the panic goes. And then it is just amazing what you can achieve with staff. And the great thing about working in a rugby league club is there's a lot of young staff who are just so passionate about what they do that 24 hours you might be down the mouth about something like that, and then or a loss, but right back on the horse and let's go again.
Back just quickly to the stadium fiasco, if we can call it that. You guys have got the Prime Minister of the country in your back pocket. Surely you just give a call to Albo and just go, listen, push it through, bro. Get us into Allianz. What are we doing?
He's very keen to get back to Allianz. Albo came to the Brisbane game straight after he won the election, so that shows you his passion for us, and I know he wants to see us back to Allianz. I mean, Albo was on the board at South during the fight back, so he knows better than most where we should be playing our games, and he wants to be part of it. And I'm sure Chris is probably getting earache from him as well, with Albo telling Chris that we need to be back there and to make it happen sooner rather than later.
It's a nice one to have in the back pocket.
Yeah.
Just trying to kick things along.
We'll do what I say, Chris.
Yeah.
That's Minzy, obviously.
Chris Mins.
Yes.
Minzy. Head of hair, Minzy.
Who's Minzy support?
Chris is a Bulldogs fan.
Okay. Listen, whatever. We'll let that one go, Minzy.
How involved is Albo in the club now these days?
I would say he's still talking and thinking about it a lot. And when it's not an election year, any opportunity he can get to come out to a game. And that was great. The Friday after an election, he comes out and has a couple of beers and watches the game, and was able to present we had a Play Her Way program for the girls in the area who'd just taken up rugby league, and he got to present the awards to them. And in the dressing rooms afterwards, talking to Wayne and the players, he's so passionate about it. And every now and again, a bit like Russell, you get a text, we're going to win this weekend, or how are we going to go? Or so he just loves.
Have you got any time?
yeah.
Just like a gambling.
Yeah, who's looking good this weekend?
Well, I think for him, he's got
First
obviously a full plate right as Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And like the rest of us, sport or your club is something that you can be passionate about and take you away from probably the mundane nature of your daily existence.
Yes.
100%. Even if you're Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
it'd be
mate,
a
I
great way.
need to just take a load off.
Well, mate, you just win the election. It's like, I'm just going to go to the footy, have a couple of beers. Thank God that's all
Thank
over.
God.
My God. What about with new teams coming into the competition? There's obviously, like, I'm not entirely sure how it works in terms of whether new clubs are given extra money or they're given extra dispensation for getting players and that sort of stuff.
PNG, for example, would be given tax concessions.
They get the tax concessions, right? How does part of it is positive, right? It's growing the game, so it's beneficial to the overall competition. But then, as an individual club, sometimes it sounds like there's a little bit of concern there.
I think so. They've said that neither club will get some concessions, which is we're all content with that. But I think from a club point of view, we want them both to succeed. We want them to be successful on and off the field. The Dolphins have done a lot for the competition since they came in. We actually had the WA Bears CEO at Redfern this morning watching training, and we took him around the centre and walked through, I suppose, how we run our commercial program. So we don't want them to fail because it's too important for the competition and for all of us that they are successful and open a new market, both in terms of players and sponsors. So we want them to succeed. We just want the playing field to be level, but we'll do everything else we can do to try and help them get set up for 2027. They don't have that long, really, before they're in the competition, so they know they've got the clock is counting down. But I think with the support they're getting from the NRL and with the clubs wanting to see them have some success, they'll appoint a coach in the next couple of weeks and then they'll be rolling.
Do you see tax concessions by the PNG government as an unequal playing field, or given that you've got to go and live in PNG in essentially like setting up like camps, aren't they, over there for them?
That's
Village.
A
Yeah.
village.
Yeah.
Do you see that as like needed in order to attract talent to?
I think it's definitely an advantage for them, but I tend to agree with the NRL when they say there's lots of other disadvantages they've got that they've got to try and mitigate. So I think in the main, we don't really know what that tax concession looks like yet. We just know there's going to be one. I think every club's sort of scratching their head. They want to see it first before they make a final call on it, but we do have some appreciation and respect for some of the other challenges they've got. They've got that build that village from scratch. A lot of players who do move there will be leaving family behind or taking them with them, which again will be some challenge. So again, we just wanted to be successful. I think the opportunity in PNG is huge. I know Matt Cameron, the Penrith CEO, visited earlier in the year and just said it's remarkable how much people love the sport there. Kids want to play it. If there's a problem, it's that they don't have anywhere to play or the games can't go long enough because they don't have anywhere to play. So he thinks that this will be transformational for the game in Papua New Guinea and probably for all of us because there could be so many good players coming out of that area.
Seriously.
I've heard it said by Wayne actually before that people always contend, there's not enough good players in rugby league to justify the expansion, whereas Wayne's actually said, well, it's not a dearth of players, it's a dearth of good coaching. Do you tend to agree or side with Wayne on that? Do you think that there is enough talent across the country to sustain what would be Team 18 and 19?
Yep. No, I think I'd agree with Wayne. And that was one of the things we said to the NRL when they came around and asked us about expansion 12 months ago. We said, I think coaching's something that the game has to improve, not only at NRL level, all the way through the game.
Yep.
40 years ago, the probably coaching program was more aligned than it is now, and I think that's an opportunity for the game. We've got to help coaches, be they under fives or under sixes coaches down on the park. How do we make life easier for them? And then how do we make sure that coaches in our pathways programs are as good as they possibly can be? And no good player who wants to make a career in rugby league falls out of the system.
Yeah.
And that's a coaching issue.
And then when you see these teams coming in and you're like, holy shit, we got a lockdown. Where's everyone at? Where's everyone's contracts at? We got to make sure. Because they're just coming, right?
Yep. Yeah. No, that's one thing you do have to do. And I mean, salary cap is a huge part of the job and everyone's job at the club because you want it to be you want your team to be as good as it possibly can be. So you're always looking at it. But then when you throw in competition from two new teams, you got to get your head around who you want to keep and how you lock them down pretty quickly.
Does an approach to salary cap management change based on coaches potentially or like from year to year? So I know like with Parramatta a couple of years ago, it was like, we will not pay a single player over this amount, or at least then this is what's reported, right? This is their limit, this is what they've got, and they just try and keep it all, and then everyone else sort of falls underneath it. Does it change based on what the coach wants to do, or is it a collective sort of, let's try this?
I think you try and have a collective system that you stick to in the main, but you've got to allow some flexibility for a coach who wants a player or wants a team to play in a certain style. Brandon Smith's probably a really good example of that, where Wayne identified Brandon as someone that we needed, who could add a lot to the club. Probably wasn't in our system in terms of who to sign or when to sign them, but given the qualities Brandon has, it was a bit of a no-brainer, especially with Wayne so keen to sign him. So you've got to have a system that kind of gives you a strategy around salary cap, but then you've also got to have enough flexibility in it that if the coach or someone else sees an opportunity to sign a great player, you've got to be able to do it. Jack was a similar opportunity when he came up.
Yes. Yeah, right.
Do you find you need to push back on the request from coaches sometimes? Like, because you obviously see the big picture. Are they always trying to, push the envelope on players that they want? Or like how much insight do they have into the salary cap that you might have?
They have a lot. And to be fair to the coaches I've worked with, they've always understood the salary cap. They know how it works. They know you just can't have everyone. It's not fantasy football, unfortunately. So
that'd be fun.
Yeah, Wayne particularly is really smart about it. They know that there's a finite figure you've got and you've got to try and make it work. And we've got a great CFO who's worked in the industry for almost 15, 16 years. So when you sit around to talk about who to sign, he's very good at saying, well, if you do that, here's the implications in 2 years or 3 years. So
yeah,
I've got to say, all the coaches I've worked with, it's almost coaching 101 now. Not only do you need to know on the field, but you need to know if you want to sign players or you want to sign a player, what the ramifications are.
Is it complex, the salary cap? Like, did it take years to get your head around it, or is it pretty simple and it just made to be this sort of complex beast that people fuck up all the time?
I think it's pretty simple, but in terms of how it works, you got to figure at the bottom, and you can't spend more than that. And every year, I think the challenge is you've got to predict a long way out, and part of that is the rules around signing players. You need signing players 9 months before their contract even starts, sometimes even longer. So you're making some long-term predictions, and that's the complex part. The figures and the rules, they're actually pretty straightforward. The challenge is, how do you predict so long into the future about what a player might be worth or might not be worth, or what the market might value them at in 2 or 3 years' time?
Do you like the way that the system runs at the moment? For example, let's say a player's off contract at the end of 26, you can talk to them in November of 25 to sign them for 27. Like, does it work the way it's going? Is it a bit dicky? Would you make any changes if you could?
Trade windows,
I think all that sort of stuff.
I think it's a bit dicky.
Yeah. Feels a bit dicky.
It does need to change, but I just don't think as a game we've all spent enough time sitting down going, right, what should it change to that's better than what we've got?
Yeah.
Everyone looks at sort of drafts or trade windows or transfer windows in European football and say, oh, that's better. But I don't think it essentially is that better, that much better. So our job is, I think, between now and the next CBA, sit down with the players and work out, well, what's a better system than what we've got now? Because it can't be good what we've seen this year, I think, in detracting attention.
What are you talking about?
So I think, you can't have, I don't know, it's not good for players to be 18 months out from the end of their contract saying that they're going to move clubs. I can't imagine another sport in the world where that'd be tolerated.
Yes.
So how we then come up with a system that is better than what we have at the moment, but isn't just an off-the-shelf version of what another sport does that won't work here.
Yes.
How have you? What's your reflection on the way it's all gone down at the Tigers with Galvin, like the situation, as much as you're prepared to share your opinions on that situation? I don't know where it's at. But do you know what I mean? Like, what's your reflection on that? Because it's been even with Dylan Brown, but to a lesser extent, Cherry Evans to a lesser extent, this one seems to be like the cream on top of a shit show cake.
Yeah, I think if you were actually looking at the Galvin situation in isolation, it's probably not the end of the world. But when you put it on top of those two situations that have created a lot of media attention, like you said, it does feel like the cream on the end of the show.
To put it eloquently.
Yeah, very eloquently.
The shit show, the shit show cake.
Yeah. So I think that it's kind of magnified the challenges in the system and how unsatisfactory it is for everyone. And I feel sorry for Richard and the Tigers. Obviously, they were keen to keep him, and they've lost a player that they considered one of their future stars. So, again, I'm it's hard to know. You're not in the middle of it, what the situation is. But again, the system kind of allows this to happen, and we have to fix the system and probably try and stop this stuff being a huge distraction. I know there'll be some people, Clint argues that it's kind of helps generate interest in the game, how it looks at the moment, and maybe that's true, but I'd much rather, I think everyone would much rather the interest being what happens on the field.
Yes.
Trade windows also still generate, if we just use that as an example, like they still generate heaps of interest.
And having been in England or in Britain and watching that transfer deadline stuff, and Sky Sports used to have that clock going for 31 days, counting down to the final minute, and you'd have all their reporters out at all the different clubs and someone going for medical and all of that stuff. So that drives attention to it. Probably what it does is at least it puts it in a month window in July, August, and a month window in December, January, and when it's over with, people can get on with their lives.
Do you find player managers difficult to deal with? Like, the general, I guess, storyline is that there are certain player managers control certain clubs and like, got too much influence. How do you find them?
Good to deal with. At the end of the day, their job is to do the best for the player. So they're not there to do the best job for the club. The clue's in the name, player manager, right? So they're always going to want the best outcome for the player. We're fortunate at our club where we've got a really broad mix of managers representing the 34 full-time players. So I think we've got 7 or 8 different managers. And
is there any consideration in doing that though? Like not having one manager have like 7 players, or it's not really doesn't factor into your calculations?
No, it doesn't factor into our calculations, whether it's by luck or by management. That's just how we've ended up.
Yep.
So we've got a good relationship with most managers. We, again, I suppose it helps. Wayne doesn't have a manager himself, so he comes to the place pretty independent. He's not relying on a manager to do his deal, so he can be pretty free and easy with who he speaks to and which player managers he deals with. So from that point of view, we've found them all pretty good to deal with. Again, you sort of walk into the conversation knowing that they're not there to help the club. Yeah. Mainly they're there to get the best result.
Yeah, you're
for the
right.
player.
Clue's in the name.
Yeah, it's
a giveaway.
Yeah, it's sort of. And I think probably that's one thing where maybe the media and the fans don't get enough information on that. The player agent is there to try and get his best result for the player. It's a short career, and they want to try and do the best for them. They're not there. We don't pay them. The player pays them. So if they're going to take a star player away from a club and take them to another one, it's because they feel like that's in their best interest.
Would you be in favour of a draft of young talent?
No. I'm probably along with the chairman of the Roosters, we're probably the 2 most outspoken people when it comes to a draft. I think one of the unique attractions of rugby league is that you can grow up. I always talk about Sutto or Cam Murray in our situation where they grow up in South Sydney. Mm-hmm. They play their first game of footy at 5 for Mascot or Southeastern or Maroubra or Coogee. They play their whole junior career at that club or other clubs in the area. They get in a junior pathway system. They play junior bunnies at 13, 14, Harold Matts, SG Ball, debut for the club, and then play 300 games, in Sutto's case, win a premiership, and then they're local heroes forever. If you put a draft in that, there's every chance that you lose that opportunity for a Sutto or a Cameron to come through, play their whole life at a club in the junior area, and you kind of have to see the affection and the warmth and the passion that people have for that journey all the way through before you start talking about a draft coming in and breaking that up. Always talk about if you're a good soccer player in Manchester, your chances of playing for Manchester United are minimal, right? Yeah. But if you're a really good rugby league player in Maroubra, chances are you've got a real opportunity to play your career at South and be a local hero. So I'm a real anti-draft advocate. I think draft for a young player would be a nightmare. Maybe a internal draft once players are in the system. That might make some sense, but no way. I think we've got a real unique point that separates us from AFL, separates us from a lot of other sports that kids can be local heroes for their club.
Punters and dribblers, good day. the number one multivitamin in the country, not even taking the piss. Go and read the reviews. No one else has 5-star reviews like we do, as many as we do, over 1,200. Check them out yourselves, begoodhealth.com.au. I'm going to read one here. Absolutely brilliant. I've taken a plethora of multivitamins over the years, especially during my career as a semi-professional kickboxer. This stuff has some of the cleanest and most notable effects on my energy and immune system. I absolutely love it. This shit's legit, mate. This shit's legit. As I've said before, it was not made in the back of some cunt's shed. It is fucking pure, unadulterated goodness, Tom.
That's right, Eddie. That's right. And good to know the kickboxing community getting around it. Head to begoodhealth.com.au. Use the code Dribblers. It will get you 10% off if you just want to give it a try. But if you like them, what you haven't, subscribe. Code Dribblers will get you 20% off with a subscription.
Back on the Galvin situation, is it difficult to sort of remove yourself from the emotional connection to a player when you've got, if you look at what's happened the last 24 hours with Galvin, essentially some of the dogs, and now it's like Reed's been asked, said he can go look, Sexton's in. It's like, from an outside looking in, it seems like it would be difficult. Even what happened with Brandon at the Roosters, it can be a fucking ruthless game sometimes, and I imagine there has to be some sort of a compartmentalization of the process.
Yeah, there's a bit of a compartmentalisation, but one of the great things about working in sport is it is emotional, and everyone's passionate about it, and you become attached to players, you become attached to all your colleagues, and when you're working with them and a player leaves, it is hard. And as much as you want to compartmentalise it and sort of trot out that old cliche that sport's a business and it's all right, it's still tough to see players go, and particularly players that have been at your club for a long time or you have a good relationship with. I know Cookie last year was tough to see Cookie go. So yeah, there's a lot of players where you have a lot of time from, you spend an extraordinary amount of time with them in the workplace, and often you see them come in as kids and kind of living the dream and building careers in rugby league, and then seeing them go can be pretty tough.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Let's get hypothetical for a second. Like, if I'm in the C-suite group chat, what's the feeling around GMs going on to media panel shows once a week and sort of spinning a narrative that you could potentially argue benefits them over the long term? How does the C-suite feel about that?
I think the C-suite probably find it's a little bit difficult to understand when someone is going on a show.
Hypothetically, of course.
Yep.
Super
Whether they're
hypothetical.
GM of footy or another accredited role, are they speaking as in their day job, or are they speaking as a media commentator? And I think most of the people on that C-suite group chat would like the NRL to clarify what the rules are, because it's pretty clear when players speak what the expectations are of them. Coaches particularly, there's high expectations on what they're allowed to say, and I think it'd be helpful if everyone knew what the rules were when it came to people who are in other accredited roles.
Has the C-suite asked that of V'landys to clear that up?
Certainly in terms of asking it of Andrew, I think, and Andrew acknowledges it's an issue too. I think he's said that they do need to clean up the rules around that sort of stuff and make it a bit more transparent, and so that everyone knows when someone's speaking as an accredited agent or as a GM of footy or as a member of a board or as an assistant coach, and when they're speaking as a member of the media.
Okay.
Well, that was interesting. I like that response. Hypothetical as it was.
It was extremely hypothetical. Up to you, Andrew, I suppose.
Well, yes, exactly. Over to you,
Mr. Abdo.
Mr. Abdo, close personal friend.
No, I think it's also it's a bit of a sign of maturity in the sport. I don't think look at Tom Brady when he went to the Raiders as an owner, how clear the NFL rules were about what he could and couldn't do as a commentator.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any harm in that. I don't see why it shouldn't be any different for us. If we're mature as a sport, that's the sort of stuff we need to do.
And I mean, and in your mind, would that be does this metaphorical GM, does he commentate Bulldogs games, or is it more just around, I guess, being able to speak publicly about his metaphorical side? I think on a show.
Yeah, and I think probably speaking about players from other clubs, is a challenge, I
Yeah,
find.
yeah.
And again, the NRL are strengthening some of those anti-tampering rules, which is important. I think we've got to make them stronger than what they are at the moment. But I think, again, any official of any club who's speaking about a player from another club, I think it's pretty dangerous territory.
Yes. And this most recent hypothetical situation has been particularly
Feels tampered.
glaring. Feels like it's been. Anyway. Can we ask about Latrell's media ban and how that works? Like,
Can we unban? We're not on that.
yeah,
list,
we're not part of that, are we?
Oh, I think everyone's on
Oh.
it. Yeah. So,
but
We're not media guys.
no.
We're just a couple of dickheads with microphones.
yeah, I think everyone's on it.
Right.
Right.
No, to be fair, he made a decision last August that he wasn't going to speak to medias or podcasters or journalists or anyone. He wanted to focus on his health and his family and his football first and foremost. It won't be forever, I'm sure. There'll come a time when Latrell will be back and speaking to podcasters and speaking to media. But at that point in his life, for very good reasons, that's what he wanted to focus on. And I can't give him enough credit for the commitment he's shown to that on every level and every day of the week, how focused he's been, and it sort of reflected, I think, in his footy over the last month, and certainly since he came back from injury, and then probably just seeing him around the place, how happy he is, how excited he is to be around a footy team again. He's gone through a lot in his fairly young years and fairly not short career, but
He's only 27. I think we were looking at it the other day. I was like,
which is insane. He feels
what he's jammed
he's been
into.
around the game. When did the Roosters sign? It was 16.
16, debuted at 18. So he does feel like he's been around a long time, even though he's only 27. And I think for him, he's probably given the media enough stories over the last 4 or 5 years that they've dined out, I think, enough. And
they also, that's the thing we were talking about, is that they dine. He's absolutely given them stories, and then they dine out on things that aren't stories and feel like they take the piss, and they're almost utilising his star power in the wrong way just to try and generate clicks.
And I reckon if Latrell was sat here, he'd say there's been times when he's been fairly criticised for things he's done, and there's been times when he's been very unfairly criticised.
Yeah.
And for him taking a break from all of that for a little while is the best thing for him and will be the best thing for him. And hopefully when he does come back to talk, he'll be talking on the platform of feeling great, but also his footy doing a lot of the talking for him.
And on the Hello Sport platform.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure that's where he's got his first.
He's got his penciled in.
100%. Are there NRL supportive of players taking media bans, or do you get a lot of pushback from them being like,
no, they've been pretty good. They haven't mentioned it too much. They just wanted a bit of background as to why. They'd much prefer players were talking all the time, and they've got a sport to promote, and we understand that. But I think in this case, they understand there's some fairly logical reasons why Latrell's not doing it, and hopefully it'll be not that long before Latrell's back and talking to Hello Sport and other podcasters and other media.
To devil's advocate it slightly, does it potentially set up a precedent for any player who doesn't want to, for whatever reason, of course, as well? Like, it's not to say that it's not a good reason, but does it potentially set up a precedent there where, like, it could get out of control or it could snowball a little bit? Do you need to be conscious of that? Do you need to have, like, you kind of need a good reason if you're going to come to the club and say you don't want to do media?
I'm sure that's the NRL's concern, that it doesn't set off a chain reaction of a load of players doing it. I know every player at our club, and it sounds like every player in the New South Wales Origin team has understood the reasons why and have been happy to do their media or do more media to make up for it. So, and again, I think Latrell is in not a special case, but I think if you look at the history of how much he's been written about or how much he's been talked about, he's certainly delivered for the sport in terms of stories and profile and publicity. And also, it's probably important to remember that if you turn up to Redfern to watch training, he'd probably be the last person off the field signing autographs, having coffee with the fans in the cafe and talking to them and stopping for a million selfies. So it's not like he's on a publicity ban. He's still the same Latrell when it comes to engaging with the fans, first and foremost. But just in terms of publicity and media, he's not doing it.
On Redfern, was it tough to move the club away from the spiritual home at Redfern? Like, did you get a lot of pushback on that? Were you there at the initial ideation of that move?
Yeah, there was no pushback because I think people saw the limitations of Redfern.
Yeah.
As much as everyone loves it and it is still our spiritual home and our Pathways team still train there, when you got players having to move their car every 4 hours, so interrupting gym sessions so they can move the car. I think
Captain's run, sorry mate, just got a fucking inspector.
well, and there was that. So there'd be inspector in the area. You'd see players and staff.
Couldn't bribe him with tickets?
Yeah.
No, they're
That's
unbribable.
hilarious.
The parking inspectors are
Yeah, they
council.
are.
But, so I think everyone realised it.
That's hilarious. I
Yeah,
didn't know
Redfern, as much as we loved it, we're in elite sport and you can't have players interrupting captain's run or gym sessions to get out and move their car. And then what we had to do was try and take as much of that history and heritage with us to Redfern. And Jason did, and the team did that wonderful walk where they basically carried everything that we had at Redfern out to Redfern and visited every junior club on the way. So that stood us in really good stead.
Nice.
Obviously, you're coming on a podcast here, which is new media. How much of a awareness do you have or feel like you need to have as a sporting organisation on like the evolving landscape of media and like that it's not just like sit down chats with journos and all that sort of thing and that you've sort of got to try and go to where the audience is?
You've got to go to where the audience is. And in some ways, we've tried to service that ourselves. So we know there's a big audience for what we can do and tell stories that probably the media can't tell.
Yeah.
The Latrell visit to Bill Knowles was one of them. The Charlie documentary or movie was another one. So there's stuff that we produce that, with the greatest respect, only South fans or South members will love. So we can do that. Then there's obviously you've got to feed the machine in terms of the host broadcasters, particularly Nine and Fox. And then we understand how podcasts are and how important podcasts are and their audience. I was talking to one of our staff the other day, so she doesn't really engage in too much of the traditional media, but she listens to you guys all the time. So
Respect.
yeah, that's
Send our best.
Yeah, that's a pretty good indication of how important I think new media is. Probably not so new anymore, but
Yeah.
you've got to go where the audience is because we've got to get our message across and we've got to engage with our fans through whatever medium they want to listen to us in.
When's Cheese back playing?
I think around 15 or 16 he's scheduled, so he's
Not
training.
far.
No, he's not that far. He's doing some training at the moment. He's on the field. He's not training with the team quite yet, so he's still got to do a little bit of work before he gets there. But yeah, hopefully around 15, 16, if not long after that.
As these new teams come in and there's a new CBA, in the next 3 years or something like that, and the broadcast deal will come up again, what would you ideally like to look a season to look like? It's at 27 rounds at the moment. Obviously 3 buys. He played 24 games. My feeling, a lot of people we talk to's feeling is that's too many. Where would you like to see it?
I don't think it's necessary that there's too many games, but I think the season's probably too long. I know that might sound a bit strange, but I think somewhere between 22 and 24 regular season games is a good result. You can't have it too much shorter, I think, because you start to probably lose our commercial opportunities. You have less home games. You have less time on TV. So the game's got to be really careful about reducing the games below 24 because that'll come at a cost to all of us. But I think there's a different way the schedule can be carved up. Again, I saw Buzz. He had his piece on Origin, and there's a few of us that have been fairly vocal on the current 8-week period that Origin runs for. And I think of a competition of the quality of the NRL, you can't have a representative set of representative games basically diluting the competition for a third or 8 weeks. That wouldn't be tolerated in any other sport in the world and isn't. So
it is funny that, isn't it? Because it's like,
so the way you'd be looking at it is like there's a 6 weeks that it runs from the first game to the last game, 6, and then the first 2 weeks where they go into camp.
Yeah, so you're basically losing players for eight rounds.
Yeah.
And I think all of us in the game would like to see that shortened. I think we all accept that if you're going to play Origin in the middle of the season, which the NRL and broadcasters tell us we have to, there's going to be some disruption, but just not 8 weeks and not so often. Once you get to 18 teams, they probably don't need to have 3 buys, so I'm sure that gives an opportunity to move from 27 weeks to something shorter, and then just trying to fit Origin in without players and clubs players having to back up after games, or clubs having to go 8 weeks missing their best players for 4 or 5 games during an 8-week period. I think we're better than that now as a sport. Origin's important. I think all the clubs love it. We understand what it's there for, but we just wish it didn't detract or distract from the season for so long.
So how would you like to see that change? Have you had any thoughts around what you think they should do?
Yeah, I think obviously everyone argues that you try and put it into 3 weeks and shut the season down. I'm not sure that that's the best model either. We had a system where we probably go back to a Sunday night game because that reduced the length of Origin and also reduced the number of rounds where we were without our players. So I think there's a Wednesday schedule again with a bit of flexibility where we might only miss our players for 2 or 3 games rather than 6 or 8, and then reduces that Origin period to ideally 4 weeks. I think there's a bit of merit in. I don't think you could play Origin 3 weeks in a row given the ferocity of the game. And that game 3 last year, that first 40 minutes was probably as brutal a game of rugby league as you're ever going to see in your life. 3 of them in 3 weeks. I'm not sure anyone will be left standing by the end. But there's probably a better system where there's less distraction, less disruption to the competition, but the Origins are still spaced out enough to give the players a chance to recover.
It feels like that this conversation is had every year. Do you think, how far is it? Is there any like roadmap for when they might? Is it the next agreement when they would look to potentially change it?
Yeah, I think Andrew and Pete have been pretty honest that they're hamstrung a little bit until the next broadcast agreement's done. So hopefully what happens is before that's done, there's a real examination of what is better than what we've got now and produce something to take to the broadcasters that they find attractive too.
When a draw comes out, are you just like, some years are you just straight on the blower going, what in the fuck is this thing you just dished up to me, mate? Like, are you blowing up or? No.
Like, again, without wanting to quote Wayne, Wayne's view is who cares?
That's good.
Is that right?
Yeah, just
Wayne's an alpha male. He's just like,
just such an alpha.
Well, he's got a pretty good approach to it, and arguably I've kind of learned that over a long period of time too. And having worked at Super League and been on the other end of that call where you get the call from a club saying, what the F is this? I think what you think is a tough draw in October when it comes out can often be a milder draw than you first thought. What you thought was a really good draw ends up being a disaster for you. So it's so hard to predict. The competition's so even. You don't know who you're going to be coming up against on any given day, and you don't know how injuries will affect you, how injuries will affect them. So I think after a period of time in the game, you realise that who knows what can happen, and you worry about it when you get to the season starting. And for us now, we kind of look at, hopefully it's a good draw for our fans and members so that they've got plenty of home games to go to at good times and avoid some of the other slots.
Like in October last year, you look at that Panthers game, you go, fucking hell, that's tough. But now...
now Panthers. Now everyone's salivating for a Panthers game. Give me the Panthers, please.
Give me that. You're playing 3 times.
It's been crazy this year how close it's been. Is there anything like this? Is the closest I can really remember. Like in terms of at this stage of the year, 6th place is like 2 wins outside of this. It's 2 wins off last place.
It's a great competition. So I was actually talking about it at work the other day, trying to work out why. And obviously, there's the cap. Probably the addition of the Dolphins has spread the talent a bit more evenly. I think that's been good. And then the players themselves, every time the comp brings in a new innovation like 6 again, they find a way to take the standard of the competition to a new level. And the other thing we were talking about too, it feels like the last 4 years or 5 years since the introduction of 6 again, the comps got faster. There's more shapes and sizes in the game again. 5 years ago, it's hard to see a guy like Jai Gray getting an opportunity because it felt like the sport was heading to a path of you had to be 100 kilos minimum.
He gets smaller when his headgear comes off. I'm like, there's a footballer, and then he takes his headgear off, and I'm like, that. I feel like I need to swaddle him. He's so small.
But
but just so brave, and like the way he plays, like it's incredible.
Trey Fuller at the Dolphins last year showed that, right? If you're brave and you've got footy smarts, the way the competition is at the moment, you can have success. And I think
strong. Like they're not. You know what I mean?
He's putting out serious PCMs, post-contact meters.
Yeah.
You reckon Blake doesn't know what a PCM is?
Well, I should hope so.
Christ.
But like, you got to be sure.
Yeah, true. No, you're right.
But I think to the comp's credit, it's never been better. And looking at those games on the weekend, if you got all 4 or 5 right, you must be Nostradamus because you couldn't predict what was going to happen. And I think that's been like that every week. And again, I think the comp's in such good health, and the fact that it's so even at the moment.
What I'd also take from that is you didn't expect Manly to lose either. You're obviously
didn't. I gotta
surprised by
say,
that
no,
loss.
I
Yeah,
didn't.
no, we were all
I didn't expect
absolutely.
Manly
We
to
did
lose.
his ass on Manly. Like the rest of us.
But it's great for the sport, right? Like I think going into COVID, the sport probably wasn't feeling like this, and everyone was bagging it. And if you're a rugby league fan, you maybe weren't embarrassed, but you certainly weren't as vocal about how good the sport was. And now we are, and I think probably for the first time in 20 years, we're making AFL look pretty flat-footed. That's to Peter and Andrew's credit. They've come up with those innovations like Vegas and Six Again, and I think AFL will be looking over the shoulder at us now, and for the first time with a bit of fear.
Yeah.
How has that translated positively from a membership and commercial sort of revenue perspective?
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. From a commercial point of view, we're a lot stronger than we were. I think brands that were never interested in sponsoring rugby league, I remember you'd be pitching to people in 2018, in 2019 would say they wouldn't touch the game, and now knocking our doors down to get involved. So the perception of the game and how innovative it is and how passionate people are is out there for everyone to see.
Love that.
Love it.
Just love to see the game doing well.
Oh, the game thriving, Edward. Thanks for coming on. It's been really nice to meet you, nice to chat. Obviously, whilst we like you as a bloke, it hasn't changed our feeling about your club. We're obviously big Manly guys, and will always be, but we do love the South Sydney players. That's what we always say.
We love the players. Love the vibe of the players.
Yeah.
Big fans of Wayne. Obviously, big fans of yourself. It's just the club that we have an issue with. But
that's more,
that's just like a club
purely,
thing,
it's
right?
competitive.
The great thing about sport, isn't it? You've got your club, and then it tends to change who your second favourite team is, depending on players or who's annoyed you that week or what's going on.
If any consolation, there are plenty of clubs we hate way more than the Rabbitohs.
Way more, like the
Way
Eels.
more.
I heard a good description of one of them on one of your shows last week. So
Yeah.
I can't remember. We bag them all, so I don't know which
The
one it was.
Rabbitohs, we don't mind the Rabbitohs.
No, I like the Rabbitohs.
When saddled up against others.
They can be like a second favourite team, even the Rabbitohs. You know what I mean? Like the 2014?
2014.
I was on the Rabbitohs after Manly.
one
obviously.
of the great teams.
Even though you beat us in the prelim, didn't you? Geez, I don't know. I don't want to go back there.
I think you beat us in the prelim in 2013.
13. I was at that game. You got off to a great start, and we came back over the top of you.
Yep.
And then
Yes.
won the final, but didn't.
Well,
We
listen,
beat you in the first week of the semis in 14.
that's what it was.
There you go.
Excellent. All right, that's got me
At
depressed.
Allianz, of all places.
Yeah, well, your home ground. Soon to be new home ground.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming
Any final words for
Yeah.
for the Roosters?
Not really.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect,
That's
perfect.
everything
All
you
right.
need to know. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank
Pleasure.
you. Thanks for having me on.
Could you two just not talk anymore?